Hello and welcome to another episode of Slick Willy Fly. So today we're going to do a Crazy Charlie. And I do a lot of variants of Crazy Charlie. I usually like to keep them simple like this right here. This is just a little bit of braid and a little bit of deer and a little bit of crystal flash. But sometimes I'll incorporate rubber legs like in this fly. This is a blend of squirrel and craft fur. Sometimes I will make a little bit more simple. This is just brown deer and a little bit of rubber legs and crystal flash. This is a dubbing body. So basically what I'm getting at is that a Crazy Charlie can be very simple, get a little bit more into it, and different sizes, different colors. They all seem to work. So what do I have in the vise? I have a Mustad stainless steel hook in size 2. And I'm going to go ahead and use some white thread. Today I'm going to use a salmon. It's a salmon color of deer hair. And I think that it's going to work good, and it's a color that I'm a little low on in my box, so it's a good color for me to use today. Torn. I may or may not put rubber legs on this one. I really like the rubber legs. I think that rubber legs give it good action, and I think that the rubber legs tend to float, so the fly will sink to the bottom, and the rubber legs and the crystal flash will give it a little bit more motion, even when it's sitting still. Which is, I think that's a good thing. So I'm using medium-sized bead chain. And like I've said many times, I have a wire cutter for cutting my bead chain so I don't damage my scissors. This fur that I'm using, this deer hair, it leans towards the orange. It is called salmon, but it's not really pink and it's not really orange. It's a very in between color. So placement of the bead. I guess the best way that I would say is, if you think of your shank in thirds, about a third of the way back is where I like to put the bead. And I'm just going to give it a bunch of wraps in one direction, and then I'm going to turn it and give it a bunch of X wraps in the opposite direction. Got to tighten my little hook here. Been making a lot of flies and a lot of different size hooks, and that wasn't really tight enough. So now it's just basic X wraps. And what I like to do, what I've been doing, is gotta get my cocktail out of the way. Having a nice rum and coke. Is I give it a little touch of zap. And now I'll put in a few more X wraps. And what that does is it pushes the zap deep where we want it so that the eyes don't move. And then once I'm happy, I go, figure eights under the bead, over the hook, under the bead, over the hook, and that just draws everything in nice and tight. Beautiful. So now I'm going to give it a tiny little crystal flash tail. And now it's the decisions. Do I want to use a yellow? Do I want to use a pink? Do I want to use a silver crystal flash? Because I don't have orange crystal flash. And this isn't really, like I was saying, it's not really pink. It's definitely not yellow. I think I'm going to go ahead and use silver crystal flash. And you don't need more than one strand. because I'm gonna just fold it over a bunch of times. So one strand of silver. And what I am gonna do is I have a leftover half a strand of yellow that I'm gonna go ahead and incorporate just to give it a little bit more color. So it doesn't really matter what this looks like right now, because I'm going to fold over and I'm going to trim. So I'm going to go ahead and just lock this in nice and hard. I'm using a 6/0 thread, Viva 6/0. So it's a good hard thread that I can crank down pretty hard with. And now I'm going to fold over the rest of this right on top, just like you see it there. And when you fold it over like that, you make it basically impossible for it to get ripped off. I'm going to give it one turn under. Now I definitely do not want this very long. So I would say at the most 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to come in here and cut them away. And see how nicely that opens up? That looks perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I did not want a long, tail. So now I'm using a simple braid. This is SSS braid, and this is diamond pearl. And I just really like the way this looks in the water. This just comes with so much flash. So I'm just going to take the end, because this vise has a rotary function, which I'm going to take advantage of. I'm just basically locking it in, coming back all the way to my tail. Now I'm going to take a tiny little bit of zap, just to make, I'm going to use a little bit of acrylic on this also, so I don't really need much. But I just want to make it just a little bit more tough. So now remember that when you do the braid or any kind of dubbing or anything like that, you really want to use, you want to thread or apply your dubbing or body in the same direction as your thread. So I'm just going to wrap this up, the body. And you can make a taper with this. Wasn't really paying attention too well, was I? What I was saying is you can just bring it up the body and just you can make a taper with it. You can do pretty much anything with it. And one thing that I like to do is once I get up to the eyes, I like to go under the eyes, give it a wrap, and then I'll bring it back over and back over, and now I will capture it. And what all that's done is it gives it that braid body through the dumbbell eyes, through the bead chain eyes. Perfect. And now you can just trim away the braid. So now I'm going to take a step that's really not necessary, but it's a step that I like. I think it looks good. And I'm going to give a little bit of a UV resin body here. Just a really light coat of UV. You really make this body basically indestructible when you do this. Super light coat. I'm in no rush. I can move this however I need to move it. Again, I'm going to get the thread out of the way. We're going to use a little bit of gravity. And I'm going to use my needle to help move it the way I want to move it. Just build a little body up. I think that is looking really nice right there. And once you're happy with it, and I'm happy with it, then you just zap it. When I use my UV resins, I like to change the angles, and I think that helps it cure better. And they say 5 to 10 seconds is all you need, but I don't tie hundreds of flies a day, so I can sit here for an extra 20-30 seconds. It's no problem. I really want to make sure this is cured nice and hard. You know, if you notice, I keep my fingers away from the lamp. I don't know if it's true or not, but there's a little bit of talk that they use the same technology. Ladies use the same, resin when they do their fingernails. And there's a little talk that it's causing skin cancer on the fingers of ladies. So I keep my fingers away. All right, so now the next step is to put the wing on. So I've got a bigger piece, but this broke off. I'm just gonna get a little clump, don't need a lot, of this deer hair. And I don't need any of the short fluffies. Sometimes I can just bring a comb and easily take them out with a comb. And while I don't necessarily want it staggered, I don't necessarily want every hair the same length. I don't want the crazy long ones either. All right, I think that actually looks good. So now what is the length that I'm looking for? The length that I'm looking for is about the length of the fly to the end of the tail. Don't really want too much longer than that. So that's about the length that I'm looking for. Now something that I do a lot of times at this point is I would switch to monofilament thread, and then mono thread would show through the color of the wing. So what I did was I cut the wing in the angle that I'm going to place it on the hook. I give my thread a spin so that when I place this now, it will wrap towards my fingers, and a couple of wraps just like I did there making sure that I still like the length, which I do. If anything, it's a hair long, but that's okay. Now I could pull this tight and capture this wing really hard. Now notice I don't come behind the eyes. I'm going to trim this just a little bit. It's a hair long. That looks really good. Now I'm going to get another piece of crystal flash. You know, at this point is when you would decide whether or not you want rubber legs and crystal flash and all kind of stuff. I'm not going to put rubber legs on this one. I got a few with rubber legs. I'm going to use half of a crystal flash. So I'm going to save this half for another fly. I'm going to go ahead and put this on. I'm not really worried about the length because it's going to be too long. So I'm going to put it on my thread and bring it right to the top of the hook. Lock it in. Now I sort them out. And they are locked in. So now I'm just going to finish up the thread. Give this a nice look to the head here. A nice taper, a nice feel to it. Looks beautiful. So now a whip finish. You know, your imagination, that's your limitations, guys. I could have switched to a pink thread. I could have used a marker and colored the marker, colored the thread another color. I actually don't have a marker that's exactly this color. That's why a lot of times I like to switch to transparent, to a monofilament, because then the wing would have showed through. So now I'm going to trim the crystal flash about the length of the wing. I like to do them one at a time so they're not exactly the same. And really, this fly is finished. I am going to take one more step. I'm going to put a little bit of UV resin on the knot. I just like the way it looks. So I put a little tiny bit of UV on there. Now I'm going to carefully move it around with my needle. I can always add a little bit if I feel like it's not enough. I don't want to make a gigantic bulky head, but I'm going to put a little more. That came out really nice, actually. You know, when I use UV resin, I like to spin the fly because then the UV becomes just super even and it just looks so nice. And I still use gravity from time to time. You know, I'll put the angle just right. And once I'm happy with it and I'm sure that the opening of the hook eye is free, which it is, I checked it anyway, then I just zap it. And now I have another color to my Crazy Charlie collection. And like all my UV resin flies, I'll sit this in my windowsill all day tomorrow. And actually the weather's been so bad, it has been so gray. But I'll still sit in the windowsill and make sure that it just completely cures, and then I'll put it in my box. But there it is, one Crazy Charlie. It's a Mustad stainless steel size 2 hook, and that right there is that's gonna be wicked. You know, a redfish, a bonefish, permit. This is just a great little saltwater fly, and I like that I have a little variation in length. I tied both these flies today, and they're not exactly, well, they're not too far apart in size, but they're not exactly the same size. Very similar flies, like them both. This one I tied earlier. This one's a little bit longer. Has a little bit heavier body maybe. But this is also, it's a saltwater hook, but it's a black saltwater hook. So that's what I mean. I like to change things up. I like to have a little bit of options. Something that I did cool on this fly is on the fly itself, on the braid, before I used UV resin on the body, I used 20-pound monofilament that I wrapped the body with. That gives that body a little bit of a segmented look, and it just makes it a little bit tougher for you know, the bites. And this one, like we were talking, this one ended up with some rubber legs. That's why I wanted to do this last one without, because I like to have some with and some without. So I hope you enjoyed the fly. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Crazy Charlie is, you know, this is one of those go-to flies in every saltwater angler's fly box. Every color. Of course, natural deer hair is a go-to. Olives, tans. I obviously like the colors. Chartreuse is a great color. Pinks are, you know, anything that looks like a shrimp. I think that this obviously is supposed to fool a fish into thinking it's a crustacean. That's the obvious. That's why when I use this color, I give it the markings. I give it the bands. So again, hope you liked it. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.